Welcome to Have You Heard, where we talk about issues at the intersection of agriculture and engineering. Let's get started. Here are your hosts, Morgan Hayes and Josh Jackson.
Welcome. This is the Have You Heard podcast. This is episode 80. We're going to recap our spring calving season and also our fall breeding rates. I'm Morgan Hayes, an assistant professor in Biosystems and Ag Engineering here at the University of Kentucky, focusing on livestock facilities. And in my personal life, I farm in Boyle County, Kentucky, with my husband, a commercial cattle and hay operation.
And I'm Josh Jackson, assistant professor in Biosystems, agriculture engineering as well, where I focus on precision livestock farming. In my home life, we raise registering as cattle, have some hay production, and also have some goat production taking place as well.
Okay, Josh, we've been a couple weeks here. I had a death in the extended family, and so I've been sort of in and out of the office a little bit. But what's been going on the farms?
As far as on the farms, our main fall group, about 45 cows, we've been having them on about 17 acres. So we've been rotating within the subdivision of that 17 acres, and so they'll be about a month on there right now.
Wow,
and
that's
so we've been
pretty
able
good.
we've been able to, and that's one we had fertilized in early March. And so we saw a tremendous production out of that. And so we've been able to sustain them for the most part on that property.
Wow, that's really wonderful. Yeah, we also did some early fertilizer application, not as early as you, but in later March. And it looks like it's really going to boost productivity on some of our hay fields. In the meantime, we've also added sort of secondary fertilizer. We've been back out with more fertilizer on more of our pasture ground. When the spring sort of picked up with some rain on some sort of regular basis, we made the command decision to put some fertilizer down.
Okay.
So our initial cost of fertilizer has now not quite doubled, but I think by the end of the year we'll have doubled our fertilizer cost above what we spread in early spring. So,
and we've already, parts of those, we've already started bush hogging as well. So we've been bush hogging, when the cows went through, they left a couple seed heads here and there. So when they bush hog that and got to finish, when they finish up this week, I'm pretty much going to go in there and bush hog everything. And then probably come in there, kind of like what you were saying, a second round of fertilizer when it was probably just urea.
Yep, probably just nitrogen.
Yep.
Most likely that makes sense, especially on pasture ground where the cattle are cycling nutrients on. They'll still pull some P and K out, but they won't be like crazy. So that's probably a good plan. That's sort of our plan. We had some pasture ground that got all of it, but didn't actually get DAP. It got potassium and it got.
See, ours for all of our fields seem to love. They want about 200 pounds of DAP and 200 pounds of potash, and so we kind of just have to justify here and there which ones aren't as bad or will most likely respond to it.
Yeah, that's a good question, and that's one thing we need to start doing again. We did soil tests last year, but I'd like to run some more soil tests before we invest a lot of money. Make sure that the lime, the pH is right, so that there's no reason to spend money on fertilizer if it's not going to respond to it. So, on the other hand, some of it might be bad enough that if we put it on there and then we lime this fall, it'll still respond eventually. But in the meantime, sort of like you, we're trying to get the most out of our fields, especially the last couple of years where prices have been really bouncing around. Everyone's been afraid to spend a lot of money on fertilizer. Yeah. Now at least cattle prices are high, which reflects the cost of doing business today. Some people will say, "Oh, we must be doing so good." Well, no, I don't think we're making any more money than we were before. But at least right now, the price on the cattle is high enough
to at least justify
spending the money on the farm, on the infrastructure, on fertilizer, on things like that, repairing fences. There's enough cash flow that you can justify those things for the next year or two. So. At least that's what the projection looks like, and we're going to use that to our advantage and try and get some projects done, some improvements done.
Yeah, because a lot of times for us, we're talking about, it seems like we have these cyclical jobs that we have to do, and so we're always working on something and working on a task, and so sometimes you just have to knock out what you can, and hopefully you keep making progress forward.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that's a good point, that there are a lot of cyclical tasks, things that just happen, that need to happen every so often, and
like hay cutting.
Like repairing equipment. That's not even cyclical. It's just continuous.
It's just continuous. Yeah, we never stop.
Yeah, never stop with that one. So General maintenance, though, certain tasks happen every other year, every third year. Like we have bad years for tires and then better years for tires, but we do seem to need tires on a somewhat cyclical basis, and I'm hoping this isn't one of those years because I have my money allocated to other tasks currently, so I would prefer not to be buying lots of tires.
I think maybe just in the past month, we're like 4 tires in, I think.
Yeah. I think we had that year, not last year, the year before that was a tire year, and every time I turned around, we bought another set of tires, and we were thousands of dollars into tires by the end of the year, and it was just sort of like a shockingly large number. Right now we need tires on a couple of the 4-wheelers, though.
Okay, it's not too bad.
They're not as expensive, but those are not cheap tires either, so yeah. That's what it is.
Yeah, it's not the rear tractor tire. That's what always makes me hurt.
The rear tractor tire is by far the worst, so.
Yeah.
But we'll figure all those things out. In the meantime, our topic today is just a recap because we have been talking all these other things and we've sort of ignored calving season. We've briefly touched on it in our updates, but we haven't really talked about how calving season went. And what we haven't talked about at all is our fall breeding rates. So which one do you want to start with today?
Let's start with the breeding rates.
Okay, let's talk about breeding rates. I think that's a great option.
Yeah, and so we have 45 of our cows were bred.
Okay.
And so we felt fairly good about that. We gave them, they had additional time. We went out there and bred them twice, and the bull had, he has more motivation to get on some of those days to get out there than I do. So he was our cleanup essentially.
Yeah.
And so we had 3 that didn't breed, but the one we pretty much had planned for her not to get bred.
Yeah.
Or 3 that weren't bred. So 3 that weren't bred. One was she was planning not to get bred, and she's had problems. This was probably her last. That was her last go around. And then 2 that we just had some issues with, as far as nutrition wise, and they just weren't going to maintain. So it was what we hoped for, kind of expected almost. Yeah. And so 45 out of 48, not too bad.
Yep. We are in almost exactly the same boat. We had just shy of 50 that we were trying to breed, and we had 3 not breed.
Okay.
So for us, this was a big deal because we have traditionally ran a 60-day calving window off of the bull. Bull goes in, 60 days later, bull gets pulled out. We don't use AI, so it's all bull power. This year, we pulled ourselves down to a 45-day window.
Okay.
And we are still only 3 missed. So for us, that's a really good number. And actually, of those 3, one of them still had pregnancy hormones in her, but they were low, suggesting an early term loss, which is not the end of the world, but she also had a very small calf last year, and so she left.
Okay.
We did check her, and then we sent her. But the other 2 one was a younger cow, it was a heifer getting rebred, so she moved to, and she had a fairly large calf, so she moved onto our spring cycle. She'll get one chance here this spring, and if she does not breed in the spring, she will be leaving. But for us, it's a pretty good breeding rate. I mean, that puts us at 94%-ish. If we think about it as 50 head, 3 missing is 94% bred. That's a decent number. We've had up to 100. I don't think we've ever been below 90 on our fall calving group. Fall calving is always a better percentage for us than spring calving, but that's on a 60-day. So when we moved to a 45-day, we were prepared to be in the 80s.
Okay.
And the fact that we were still at 94 is really encouraging for testing towards a 45-day window, both spring and fall.
What was your bull power?
We ended up having all 3 bulls in. We have 1 heifer bull and 2 bulls that are supposed to be in with our adult cows, but because of the size of the heifers that were in this group, we put all the cows together, including the heifers and all the bulls together.
Okay.
We figured, 1, the bulls do better when they don't get reintroduced. There's not a lot of fighting.
Right.
And since all 3 had been together in the down season, we just moved all 3 together into the field. That means when we take them out, they all come out together as a group. It tends to keep them a little bit calmer. When we really have smaller heifers, in that 750, 800 pound range, we would always move the heifers with the heifer bull, but the heifer bull is not that much different in production. Like the numbers on that bull and the other 2 bulls that we have are not dramatically different. They're all Solear based bulls right now. We have 3 Celere bulls. One is considered calving yeast, the other are not, but they're almost the same number. They're just slightly above on the calving number. Nothing is crazy high. Nothing is super terminal.
Okay.
They're sort of moderate bulls, which is good for us because we're still trying to hold a certain number of cows, and we're trying to get some maternal genetics through at this point. We're not
still getting some replacement developed.
We'd like to. We would like to be able to do a little bit of culling in the next couple of years on our cow herd, get rid of the less productive animals. It's very hard when prices are this high on calves to get rid of any bred cows.
Yes.
But at the same time, we had the last 2 bulls we had were terminal, and they produced crazy calves. Crazy calves. So temperament-wise, we're not keeping very many. We didn't keep any of the calves that we weaned in the fall that we kept through the winter. Everything left.
Okay.
We didn't keep any heifers out of that group. So this group right now that's in the barn typically sells in May. We're holding them a little bit longer, putting them on grass, seeing how they do, watching temperament. The ideal thing will be if we can keep 3 to 5 heifers from this group.
All right.
This is the last group of calves that came out of these terminal bulls. I'm hoping that the calves that start coming this fall have a little bit better personality so that I feel a little bit more inclined to
keep some.
Yep.
I mean, yeah, disposition is a major concern, highly heritable, so...
It is highly heritable, and at the end of the day, we have a farmhand that's working for us that's not familiar with cattle. We have 2 children under the age of 5, under the age of 4 currently.
Yep.
That go out with us to check cows. It is non-negotiable right now to have temperament as a priority.
Yes.
So
I can understand, especially with the kids and them being out there. When you have tasks that has to be done on the farm, they almost have to be out there with you. So.
Yep, they do have to be able to go out with us, and we want them to experience that.
Yep.
And it's really important to us that they get that experience, but we can't do that if we think that there's a real danger to them or us.
Yeah.
By having them out there. So the temperament is a high priority. If it means that we shrink for a year before we get those heifers back around, that's okay. But we made the command decision to do that. It will affect how many replacements we have. And that's why these bulls that we've chosen are sort of dual purpose type bulls. They're not purely terminal or purely maternal because we need both out of them at the moment, which, you're never going to get the best of either with that, but hopefully we're going to get decent milk production on heifers that we keep, and we're going to get enough growth for the terminals. We have framey enough animals that I don't think it's a huge problem.
Yeah, the Celeres are usually pretty big.
Yeah, they're pretty big, and to be fair, the bulls are going to grow a decent calf too. They're not a breed that's going to make really tiny calves, so nothing shocking her currently, but
okay.
Yeah, but that 45-day window is going to be an interesting... if anyone out there is listening to this and they run a 45-day window off of bulls, I'd be curious to hear how much... I know a couple people that have gone as aggressive as a 30-day window. Makes me nervous, especially where we have, money we have to pay for certain things. If you missed a breed, you don't have a second chance. Where a 45-day, it's a 28-day cycle... So really a 50-day would be an ideal for most animals to get 2 chances. But 60 days is a long time to be checking in. Currently, that's a good cycle into what's happening right now. We are at the end of a 60-day calving window right now. Currently, today is May 20th. Ours typically run March to May 20th, and we still have 1 cow that is holding out for no apparent reason. It must be because she wanted to give birth in the heat of summer or something, because there's no other reason that she wouldn't have given birth yet.
Just want to make sure the grass gets there first,
The grass is over her back in the field that she's in. I'm not sure we're going to find the calf if she has it at this point, but I mean, she's just the only one that's been holding out. We had one other one that held out till about a week ago, and she's just holding strong by herself out there.
Huh. And we have about 3 more left to go. So ours is a little bit later because we just want to give them that extra. Ours, seem like it just take a little bit extra time in the spring, and so we kind of give it to them, knowing that we want to have them a little bit later.
Yep.
Just because we've had so many issues when you calve close to March and February.
Yeah, we've had issues with earlier calving too. So we, like you, we live with a later calving season, which means lower pregnancy rates in the spring calving group, and we acknowledge that in the process. My husband looked at it and he goes, if we went to a 45-day on the spring, we only would have missed 2 of the cows in this group. So out of our 50 head, 2 of the 50 came in the last 15 days of our calving window. So there is a consideration for moving that also to a 45-day window. I am concerned that if we ended up with a heat wave in the middle of that period, I would want to hold it out to 60 days. But now that I think about it, I'm thinking if I had a really good 3 or 4 weeks of cooler weather, not cool, because it is still a June breeding window.
Cool for June.
Cool for June, not a major heat wave event. I might consider a 45-day window on my spring group too.
Okay. I mean, that makes sense. I mean, if you can get them pushed a little harder and maybe make it work out, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big believer. We do feed they call it like an MGA cube, which is like a larger pellet that you can put out on the ground, and it has MGA in it. And it's not designed to synchronize the animals in the way you would with an AI. It's designed to be fed for a week prior to the bull going in to sort of jumpstart a cycle if they haven't started cycling yet, to try and encourage those later calving cows in that calving window to cycle before the bull goes in.
Okay.
And I do think it works. Since we've started doing it, we have seen better breeding rates.
Okay.
So right now we're sitting here a couple weeks out from bulls going in. Bulls are actually going to get tested this week. That'll be on my list of things to get done this week. But you were just sort of looking at what happened with calving. Calves came well this year. They came at good sizes. How were your calf weights?
I think we're really suffering this year from, I think, the lack of adequate and ample nutritional availability. Not a lot of hay. We've given them hay, but we're kind of limiting them to some degree.
Yeah.
The quality of hay just wasn't there. A lot of it was kind of that some of it we had that second cut where we got what we could get, essentially, and then feeding them that. So I think we're really suffering this year. Not horribly. I'm not saying we had 300-pound calves, but we had some that I just wish were a little bigger.
Yeah. Yeah, all of our calves that we weaned in March that have been in the barn and are currently out on grass, I would say that they had really strong compensatory gains in the first month. Typically, the first month, we would see gain rates, because we don't implant or do anything, just because we keep our heifers in that group and we're trying to get everything to gain at similar rates, and we're not trying to have the steers take off and the heifers get held back too much. So we will see rates in that 1.5, 1.7 type rate pretty commonly.
Okay.
And this year we saw every animal we had was at a 2 to a 2.2.
Wow.
And we were not feeding any more feed than we typically would. Okay. And I don't think our hay was that much better than it typically is. I mean, I don't think our hay was terrible, but I also don't think that they got anything exceptional. It was a drought year last year, so I think a lot of people had hay that was a little bit lower in quality.
Yeah, I mean, it was just hard to get a good fall cutting or even a fall cutting.
Yeah,
this past
exactly.
Year. And then going in the fall, you usually have some stockpiles, pretty much no stockpiles. So it was challenging for a lot of producers, I think. And it's the second year of a challenge, so
yeah,
that made it even more difficult.
Yeah,
but
not a lot of stockpiled hay.
Yeah, ours weren't as big, but we were hoping, this is kind of the first time we sold them some here or there off the stockyard to the stockyards off private treaty.
Okay.
Sold a little bit of both. Did decent. I mean, but we do pretty much our CPH. We pretty much CPH 45s.
Yeah.
We pretty much do all the requirements for that. We just don't sell them through that sale per se.
Yeah. Sometimes it's hard if the sale isn't at the right time of year
or
the right location. It's not convenient to do it. And honestly, when the market is this strong, I don't know how much benefit you get.
You still get some people who are willing to pay a premium for ones that are together, ones that are been raised and have all the work's been done for them, and so that there is some benefit to that. I think if they're coming from a lot of times, you get guys coming down from Ohio or Indiana, they just want something real quick and easy. They don't have to fool too much with.
Right, that makes sense.
From a health standpoint, so they're just concerned from a health standpoint. It's like, all right, these should be ready to go. They're a uniform group,
Yeah. Makes
So
sense.
that makes it easier for us.
Yeah.
But we still sell a couple here and there in stockyards just because.
Sometimes it's an easier way to get a few out.
Yep. So those ones that they don't want are oddball, maybe not quite as uniform. You sell those at the stockyards.
Yeah. I think that's a fair point. What about your calves that have just been hitting the ground this spring? How are they looking?
So they're looking pretty decent. I'm concerned a little bit. This is about the time we have to start worrying about the pink eye coming on. The flies are getting to them. Flies are getting out there pretty good. But this group, they've been doing fairly well because they were on a couple fields where the grass is growing pretty good, and so I think they've been able to hit it and grow fairly well. So I've been fairly happy with how they're doing.
Yeah, I have pretty good sized calves as well in my spring group. I think they're eating grass well. I think they're doing well. We haven't done any work on the calves, but all of our cows have been worked.
Okay.
So all of our cows have fly tags in. They've all been treated with wormer and boosted with their medications. So spring and fall group are all good to go at the moment, which is nice to be done with that. We thought about working some of the calves, but because we still have that one holdout, just a couple of calves that are too young to get worked, it made more sense to wait until we get another cycle on the grass and they're right up by the working facility and capture them then. And I think that'll be a good time to do some of that.
We've been kicking the can with the fly tags. Everything else we've been able to do with the fly tags, we've been holding off and waiting for it to get to a serious situation where we actually, we have to put them in, essentially. And so we did have one cow, there was a 2-year-old, I guess, she was a heifer, well, not a heifer, but a cow. And so she had some pink eye.
Yeah.
And so that was like we're starting to watch she was in our fall group, watching our fall group for pink eye. But most of the time, like I said, we just started bush hogging, and like the one pasture they're in, it is still high, but the rest of them, once we get them out of there, they should rotate to where it shouldn't be an issue.
Yeah, we have been bush hogging as well, but we had a couple runny eyes. Nothing that I would think was true pink eye, but when you start to have runny eyes, it's like sort of a precursor to having pink eye issues, and that was between the number of flies that we were seeing on backs and the runny eyes. We just made the decision to start working the groups through. I like to get all of them kind of worked in a sort of a closer period of time, especially for the vaccines.
Yep.
Because once we break a bottle, I want to finish the bottle within a week. So that sort of led us towards getting all of that work done probably in the first half of May. That was probably the sort of a 2-week window there.
And the crazy thing about you mentioned the weepy eye, it's like you almost get a weepy eye. On some of it seems like you get a weepy eye one day, the next thing it's full blown red, and it can be an issue almost like overnight.
Yep, that's exactly right. We had one that it wasn't full on pink eye, but it was runny enough and it looked irritated enough that we just went ahead and treated and covered, even though
it wasn't an issue.
Or it wasn't yet an issue, but it was worth treating it prior to it becoming an issue, because getting them up a second time after they've been worked is such a hassle. That's the time to do it, is when you have them up.
So a lot of times, we'll give them the long range or the economical equivalent, or not the long Draxxin, or the equivalent. Just so something that lasts a little longer in their system.
Yeah.
If we're getting them up, to treat them with pink eye. So when we treated, we gave them the cost-effective Draxxin equivalent.
Yeah. the non-name brand.
Yes.
So I think that's a fair point, that there are options out there for different things you can treat with for it.
Yeah.
But that's the other reason that we were insisted upon giving them the booster on the vaccines, is because it does have one of the common pink eyes is in that vaccine. And so just giving a booster gives them a little bit more
extra protection,
resilience against.
And we've done dedicated pink eye vaccines. We've done the county cultures and this and that, and it still seems like we'll have issues. But we try to help, knowing that it should hopefully help them, at least maybe not be as bad.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a pretty good summary of calving, though. I think calving has gone well. Not a lot of morbidity or mortality in the spring group, at least on our end.
I mean, we had one. You're going to have an issue every now and then. Yeah. I think we were doing, but we've done fairly well. We've done fairly well with ours. We actually calved out at a different farm and had to move them to the home farm, which we started calving. Well, they were due in a couple weeks and they came a little early.
Yeah.
And so then we had to move them to the home farm, and so that made some challenges. You have to go out there, 1, find them, and 2, chase them down.
Yeah.
But it can be done.
It can be done. Yep, you can always move a calf, but it's much easier to move a cow when she's late pregnant than a calf. So that's a life lesson for us all there. Okay, Josh. So what else is happening on the farms in the next week or so?
So next week or so, we're going to be working on hopefully getting some fence in. There's other people cutting hay. I want to really get my hay equipment where it needs to be and be hopefully ready to go when the time arrives. But other than that, we're going to be working on fence and trying to get everything ready to go. But put it in post, put up wire. That'll take a couple weekends.
Yeah.
Or weeknights to get all that complete.
A little bit of both, probably.
A little bit of both, yeah.
Yeah, our goals are to finish. We do have some hay down that got cut yesterday. This window is short, and hopefully it will stay dry. If I had wood right here, I'd be knocking on it because I'd prefer not to get hay wet this early in the year, but it desperately needs to be cut, and there doesn't look to be a lot of windows here until after Memorial Day. So we're going to take them as we get them. Other than that, I'd like to get those bulls tested. That is one of my priorities on the farm, is to get that scheduled. If not tested, at least scheduled this week.
To get them come out there.
To get the vet out, so.
Yeah, the breeding soundness exam is important. You got to make sure that every bull is out there working, because that's their one job.
That's right. And where in the fall we put all 3 bulls together for this spring group, they will be split.
Okay.
And so I do have one bull that has to be in with 20 and then one group of 30. So I would like for all 3 bulls to be good, a little over 30, but it's enough animals on the one farm that if for some reason one of those bulls does not work, I will need to re-divert animals to get numbers that can be bred by one bull individually on the other 2 farms. So we'll figure that out, but that is a priority because I really don't want to have to go looking for a bull at the last minute. That's always a big problem if that happens.
Challenge and a stressor, yeah.
Yeah. You got any other plans for Memorial Day weekend here?
Pretty much do what we can on the farm. I guess machinery maintenance.
Machinery maintenance.
If we can't do anything
and
else.
And maybe some fencing.
And fencing is a must, but machinery maintenance is okay if we have to.
If it's raining.
If it's raining, yeah.
And it's too wet to go out in the field for the poster.
We made out there pretty muddy conditions before.
That's true. So I think that's a good plan. I think there's plenty to do. There's always plenty to do on the farm. It feels like that sometimes, like you're just constantly running, but
you're always playing catch up, it seems like.
That is true. So with that, we'll end our podcast for today, and we will see you guys with another podcast shortly.
Thanks, everybody.
Have You Heard is a production of the University of Kentucky College of Agriculture, Food and Environment, along with the Department of Biosystems and Agricultural Engineering. Discover what's wildly possible at ca.uky.edu.